They say that age is only a number, and that adage is good news for current WWE superstars who, if current trends continue, should be due a nostalgia-fueled WWE title run sometime around 2037. Because despite there being no future in it, nostalgia is big business, and as the company continues to struggle in its quest to create new stars, the legends of the past are going to be relied upon whether their hips are titanium and their hair is thinning or not. Their usage has started to extend beyond the odd special attraction match in recent times as, perhaps convinced by a crowd's reaction to an old favourite, the part-timers find themselves penciled in for a title run. Of course, potential box office receipts and mainstream attention have something to do with it, but it seems at times that wrestling is not a young man's game anymore. Other times, those in the over 50 club will be made a champion for comedic reasons or as a way of saying thank you for years of dedicated service. Whatever the reason, we've seen many a well-seasoned veteran become a title holder long after their prime with, shall we say, inconsistent results? I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and these are the 10 oldest WWE champions ever. And a quick preamble before we begin. By WWE champions, I mean everything from the European title to the World Heavyweight title, and by WWE champions, I'm not counting the 24/7 title, because any title held by someone called Marshmallow does not deserve to be recognized. Plus, the list would then be full of duplicates and would be no fun to watch anyway, and I really like fun. Join us! Number 10, Billy Gunn, Tag Team Champion at 50 years, 2 months and 25 days. Of all of the unlikely WWE comebacks over the years, the return of Billy Gunn in 2012 was one of the more surprising. Mr. Ass spent the years immediately after his 2004 release doing everything he could to annoy those in the organization, frequently burying the likes of Triple H and Vince McMahon in shoot interviews, and even on TV for the rival promotion. But a lot of that was due to some of Billy's inadvisable recreational habits, and once he had straightened himself out and apologized to the Cerebral Assassin, he was welcomed back as a trainer for NXT. Realizing that Gunn still had something left in the tank and was really tall and muscular and was over during the Attitude Era, WWE trotted him and his tag partner the Road Dogg out for a nostalgia run, which led to the New Age Outlaws becoming WWE champions for the 6th time, some 14 years after they last held the belts. They took the titles from Cody Rhodes and Goldust on the 2014 Royal Rumble kickoff show, doing so a couple of months after Cute Kip had celebrated his 50th birthday. The Outlaws held the straps for 37 days, dropping them to the Usos on the March 3rd Raw. Number 9, Roddy Piper, World Tag Team Champion at 52 years, 6 months and 19 days. Another fella who wasn't afraid to burn bridges with the powers that be in WWE was Roddy Piper, who seemed to be perennially on bad terms with decision makers, but whose massive popularity and value always brought him back. The beloved Hot Rod's strength as a character meant that he could be used in some capacity other than actual wrestling long after his physical abilities began to diminish. Special referee, hosting Piper's Pit, managing a hot young prospect, there were a bunch of different ways to capitalize on Rowdy Roddy's charisma and connection with the audience. Invariably, however, Piper would find himself putting on the trunks and mixing it up in the ring, including in 2006 when he was voted ahead of Dusty Rhodes and Sergeant Slaughter as Ric Flair's tag team partner at Cyber Sunday. With the Nature Boy, Piper saw off the Spirit Squad to become a World Tag Team Champion at age 52. A very popular title change, the Hell-Raising Hall of Famers may have been set for a lengthy run had Roddy not been diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma shortly after. In need of treatment and recovery, Flair and Piper lost the titles to Rated RKO in what was essentially a handicap match on Raw 8 days later. Number 8, Bret Hart, US Champion at 52, 10 months and 15 days. If you want somebody to hold a title belt with dignity and defend it with respect, top of the list of wrestlers you would call is Bret Hart. If it was 1996, that is. In 2010, the Hitman had no business being in the ring, let alone winning championships, but that's exactly what wound up happening. Bret had resisted the urge to return to the employ of the man who had famously screwed him before finally giving in and signing on to work a program with the tyrannical chairman at the turn of the decade. Of course, personal animosity is not the reason why the excellence of execution shouldn't have been wrestling. Not only did his career end due to concussion issues in 2000 while performing for WCW, Hart had also suffered a debilitating stroke a couple of years later and was prohibited from engaging in strenuous physical activities. But of course, this is wrestling, where health and safety precautions are more of a personal challenge than something to adhere to, you know? After vanquishing Mr. McMahon at WrestleMania 26, Bret stuck around and worked the odd match, including a US title bout with The Miz on the May 17th 14th, 2010 episode of Raw. More of an angle than a proper match, Bret nonetheless came out as champion. Clearly done to throw both Bret and the Canadian crowd a bone, the pink and black attack vacated the title a week later. Number 7, Goldberg, Universal Champion at 53 years and 2 months. The post-PG part-timer era has seen WWE increasingly rely on superstars from the past who, while they may have been getting on in years, could be relied upon to draw interest and get eyes on the product. The Undertaker, Triple H and Brock Lesnar would stop by now and again like the favourite neighbour in a deservedly cancelled sitcom, while special attractions like The Rock, Sting and Batista were also around for the fun. One of the more shocking past performers who was brought back into the spotlight was Goldberg, who returned in 2016, 12 years after leaving the company on not so happy terms. The man was booked for a showdown with Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series in a match as much about selling video games as anything else, but stuck around until WrestleMania in order to have a proper program with the Beast incarnate. He would then pop up periodically for big money matches, winning the Universal title from the Fiend Bray Wyatt at Super Showdown 2020 in Saudi Arabia, the second time he had won the belt since being cryogenically unfrozen. Some were vocal in their displeasure at the then 53-year-old bagging the belt, but you have to remember that he was fighting a magical demon man who dresses like an extra from a bad 80s B-movie. Sometimes it's best not to take wrestling too seriously and just enjoy a legend while you still can. Actually, no, it was bollocks, wasn't it? Number 6, Gerald Briscoe, hardcore champion at 53 years and 9 months. Now contrast the nature of Goldberg's Universal title triumph with Gerald Briscoe's hardcore title dalliance 20 years earlier. In 2000, WWE were very much looking forward to the future rather than relying on the past, taking full advantage of their sprightly roster and booking the retirees as comedic relief, as opposed to genuine contenders. So the Madcap 24/7 Hardcore Championship division was the perfect place for Briscoe to contribute. The Stooge beating Crash Holly for the ramshackle belt, while the Elroy Jetson lookalike was sleeping at the age of 53. Sure, he didn't have Goldberg's physique, but I still reckon I would rather have the man in slacks on my side in a bar fight. On a side note, if you ever see me enjoying a refreshing IPA in my local, please don't try and hit me. Briscoe's hardcore title reign was gimmicky, yes, but he still took his lumps in matches with Crash and actually held it for the best part of a month before dropping it, then won it back a week later before immediately dropping it to, well, we'll get there. And I'm sure the former NWA standout and feared amateur wrestler had the time of his life dressing up in drag for his boss's amusement. Again, don't worry, we'll get there. Number 5, Chavo Classic, Cruiserweight Champion at 55 years, 4 months and 13 days. While the hardcore title naturally morphed into a bit of light relief on WWE's weekly variety show, the Cruiserweight title doing the same a few years later was less welcomed. After all, while it may not have been showered with attention from WWE creative, the Cruiserweight scene could be relied upon to produce cutting-edge action and, for the most part, the title was presented in a good light. That changed in 2004 when, amongst other things, Chavo Guerrero's dad, Chavo Guerrero Sr., or Chavo Classic if you will, won the belt in suspect circumstances. He actually took the title away from his own son, albeit in a triple threat match where he accidentally pinned his kid thanks to third man Spike Dudley. At 55 years old, Chavo Sr. is the oldest Cruiserweight champion ever. Classic, who had until then primarily acted as Chavo Jr.'s manager, managed a couple of defenses on television, beating Akio and Funaki. A dynamic high flyer in his heyday, his skills were obviously not as sharp as they once were, but he was certainly far from the least credible champion ever. Unfortunately, Eddie's brother had the tendency to go AWOL, missing several SmackDown house shows while champion, and was duly fired after losing the title to Rey Mysterio in a short match a month after he had won it. Number 4, Ric Flair, World Tag Team Champion at 57 years, 8 months and 11 days. Diamonds are forever, and so is Ric Flair, and if it were up to him, I'm sure the Nature Boy would be putting on a fancy robe and taking bumps until his bones turned to dust. WWE, however, went to great lengths to get him out of the ring in a way befitting of a legend of his stature, giving him the perfect retirement over WrestleMania weekend in 2008. Before it was made official, WWE also gave the dirtiest player in the game a couple of title runs as he entered into the winter of his career. For a man with 16 world title runs to his name, you would would think that holding a championship wouldn't mean as much to Flair in his mid-50s, but he was clearly thrilled to become Intercontinental Champion in 2005, and even happier to win the World Tag Team titles a year later. At 57 years old, Flair is the oldest tag champion in WWE history, with a solid half-decade of seniority on his partner Roddy Piper, who was, incidentally, one of Slick Rick's real-life best mates. A lovely piece of nostalgia for the long-term fan, Flair and Piper's tag title run was, as mentioned earlier, cut short due to Roddy's health issues, but the token reign did give Nate yet another record before he called it a day. Number 3, Pat Patterson, hardcore champion at 59 years and 5 months. An early inductee into the WWE Hall of Fame and one of Vince McMahon's closest confidants, not even Pat Patterson was spared ridicule during the envelope-pushing Attitude Era. Hell, it didn't even matter that he was the company's maiden Intercontinental Champion, winning a grueling and definitely very real tournament in Rio de Janeiro to accomplish the feat. Pat, along with fellow stooge Jerry Briscoe, were a riot on WWE television, playing the chairman's sycophantic sidekicks, but they were certainly put in some precarious positions along the way. And while Briscoe pulled his weight as hardcore champion, Patterson's reign resulted in one match, and oh boy was it a doozy. The hardcore title evening gown match between the gruesome twosome at the 2000 King of the Ring, voted Wrestling Observer Match of the Year, was an instant classic, full of references to Gotch vs. Hackenschmidt, but updated for a modern audience. At least, that's what I would like to pretend happened, because the actual reality of two once highly respected professionals rolling around like two blokes who wouldn't get past security at RuPaul's Drag Racetrack, I haven't watched the show but I'm assuming that's where they film the races, is a very sad one indeed. Patterson, who was 59 when he became hardcore champion, became the oldest champion ever when he won the 24/7 title in 2019 at the age of 78, but as outlined previously, that counts as much as second place in a fight to the death. Number 2, Mr. McMahon, ECW champion at 61 years, 8 months and 5 days. If you thought Vince McMahon was trolling when he made himself WWE champion in 1999 at the tender age of 54, boy, were you being naive. WWE is his plaything, so whether he wants to make himself the champion, which he very quickly vacated anyway, or book himself to make out with every single WWE diva, or force an employee to kiss his bare ass on global television, well then, that is his prerogative. But do the dirty to ECW? Oh, you mean he owned it too? Oh, 2001. Bounce checks. Bankruptcy court. Gotcha. Yes, despite being into his 6th decade as a human being, I refuse to rule out a previous life as a vampire, the genetic jackhammer won the ECW title, teaming with Umaga and his son Shane to down Bobby Lashley in 2007. Vince was pissed because Lashes had a hand in helping him lose the Pompadour, and so stacked the odds against him in a series of handicap matches in the wake of WrestleMania 23. And fair play to the CEO. Seeing him wearing the main prize of his former competition while competing in a do-rag was tremendous fun. The 61-year-old continued to get his head kicked in for our entertainment, eventually dropping the title back to Big Bad Bob in a street fight. Number 1, the Fabulous Moolah, women's champion at 76 years, 2 months and 25 days. While the old boys can continue climbing into the ring until their faces are wrinkled and they're on the cusp of a heart attack, it's historically been a little bit trickier for wrestling's female performers to come back as time goes by. It has changed a little bit recently, with the women's revolution opening the door for comebacks from the like Trish Stratus, Lita, Molly Holly and Medusa. Long before the revolution, however, a couple of tough-as-nail ladies who could quite probably chin half the menfolk in the back were setting a standard for wrestling into old age. The Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young were well into their 70s when they inexplicably became a fixture in the late 90s. Their renaissance is best remembered, or best forgotten, for hand birth, flashing prosthetic bazumbas, and getting powerbombed through tables. But Moolah certainly provided her fair share of moments too, whether getting smacked with a Jeff Jarrett guitar or actually winning the women's title. Indeed, the 76-year-old, who was the first ever women's champion, upset Ivory for the belt at No Mercy 99 before losing it back to her 8 days later on Raw. But don't worry, I'm sure that even though Ivory was champ again, Moolah somehow got a percentage of her future booking fees. Remember, always read the contract carefully, kids.